So the topic of this video is going to be a little bit different than usual. It will touch on politics a little bit, but it's predominantly not about that. It's about a development that will change the very nature of being human. And that's artificial intelligence. Recently, Stephen Hawking and a bunch of other really well-known scientists signed a letter urging world leaders to not invest in basically, this sounds like something off of Terminator, killer robots. Robots that basically do the jobs of conventional soldiers. And this is a very interesting idea because, from the government's perspective, having a robot do the work of a soldier is ideal. And it's something we've already started to do with pilots. Why would we send somebody out there to fight that we could, potentially lose in battle when we could send a robot? It makes moral sense in that case. It makes financial sense. You don't have to pay a robot a wage. You don't have to pay a robot benefits. We don't need to promise a robot a college education. We don't need to have bills passed for veteran robots. We don't need to take care of soldiers' families if they're robots. And all this housing. It's a question we're going to have to ask ourselves very soon. And if we think it's about the military only, we're really deluding ourselves. My current job could be done by a robot. I've seen it done. I write. Some of what I write is hard news, just reporting what happened. This could easily be done by a robot, and I've seen it on Reddit. There is a news robot that basically can make stories. I feel like almost all of retail could be done by a robot. Call centers increasingly are done by robots. Hard labor and manufacturing, we're already seeing that done by robots. Basically, every sector of the U.S. economy at some level could be automated and done by a robot. Financial trading of financial instruments through algorithms. You could call that a robot. And it really makes you think about our future. If we live in a future where jobs are all automated, which I think this is the future we are heading towards, and a lot of people do think this, we're going to have massive unemployment, likes of which we've never seen. I mean, 60-70% unemployment. The people who will still be employed will mainly be the entertainers. Really, the entertainers. Like, I'm trying to think of a sector of the economy that could be done by humans only. And I'm thinking doctors, oh, that could be done by a robot. Both prescribing medications and surgery. Only really creative things. Like I'm trying to think of a robot building a video game. But then I think, well, we kind of have a form of that. We have procedurally generated games. So really there's just not a lot that only humans can do once we get to a point where we can mass produce robots. So we'll have to fundamentally restructure the economy. Engineers, even engineers, will be useless. So restructuring the economy, when you have 70% of people who are unemployed, what do? Well, you have to guarantee them income. And if you're guaranteeing people income, you have to do it at least somewhat fairly. How are we to establish a meritocracy when no one works? Or hardly anyone works? Well, the answer is basically to implement a form of communism. And if this is done, it would have to be on a worldwide scale. I mean, it would be the biggest shift in our economic system probably ever. And just simply enacting global communism wouldn't work. We'd have to modify it somehow. But we would have to guarantee base income for all human beings. And human beings would no longer be subject to working. They would pursue their pleasures. And it's a very interesting thing to think about, because it's not been that way for all of human history, and it seems strange to us. But if you look back through history, it's been basically a trend towards no work. Human beings used to work all the time. Then there was the Industrial Revolution, the Tech Revolution. I mean, before all this, there was just basically slavery. The amount of time people work has just steadily gone down and down throughout human history. So it's kind of ridiculous to think it wouldn't at some point hit bottom. I just think we're getting close to it now. And a lot of democracies, Western democracies, obviously the United States is an exception, they're working less than 40 hours a week now. Which would have been unthinkable to somebody in the 1920s, for example. But the thing is, with robots, another thing you have to think about is will people still want to interact with people if we create robots that can do things better than people? People have flaws. They have hang-ups. They can get intoxicated. They can behave irrationally. Well, what if we could deal with, I use the word people, I'm referring to robots, that didn't have those flaws? Would we prefer dealing with them? Part of me thinks we would, actually. And the current trend we see of isolation through technological advances would continue. And then, this is the part people laugh about, but I think is a very interesting part of all this, is the sexual revolution that robotics will bring. And again, there's been a lot of talk about this. Birth rates are already low in a lot of advanced economies. People are shunning away from traditional relationships at an all-time high. If you had access to a robot that was there predominantly for your sexual satisfaction, and the taboo on it was basically broken, I think a lot of humanity would take advantage of that. And then we would find ourselves in a reevaluation of human relationships. And I've heard from sources that are a lot smarter than me that we're going to see some big changes in artificial intelligence in the 2020s. That we're going to have the first robot to pass a Turing test around 2030. We'll have driverless cars by 2050. So it'll be very interesting to see how these things play out. It'll change everything. If we can make a robot that's self-aware, what does that say about religion? I already think God is dead. By that I mean I don't think he exists. But how do you continue to justify religious belief when humanity becomes a god in and of itself by creating its own life? It's crazy. These are huge questions, and I think these are huge questions that are gonna have to be addressed in my lifetime. So yeah, there's my rambling. What time is it? 1 a.m. video on robots.